How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling. We got Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly here. We're also going to be joined by Nova, Mike Bucci, in about a half an hour so we can talk about his career. And he's actually wrestling all over the place. I think he's going to be wrestling for FMW at their Kawasaki show on May 5th. He's going to be wrestling in England on April the 21st, so he's going to be quite a globetrotter. Brian, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good.
That's good. Let's start off with some news. The Rock is going to be out of action for some time from WWF television. At least that is the working idea as he prepares for and does the filming this summer of the movie Scorpion King. So that's what very interesting because, on Monday, I mean, they couldn't have done a more brutal, thing where they had Vince McMahon, Steve Austin, and Triple H all beating on him, including with a sledgehammer. And then on the SmackDown tapings, Tape Tuesday, which will air tonight, they talked about, that he was suspended as opposed to being injured, which to me kind of weakens the comeback. But then again, I guess maybe the thought is they really can't say he's injured because everyone's going to know he's filming the movie anyway. I don't know. I don't know what the mentality was, but that's kind of the situation there.
Well, they could have said he was injured, and then, 3 or 4 weeks down the road when they have footage go, he's filming the movie now, and here's some stuff. It's not like his injury would keep him out of action for 3 months. Yeah.
So, I don't know. Well, we'll find out how it's played on TV tonight, but to me, if you weaken, the injury, who knows, though. I mean, look at the China thing. I mean, they had that big injury comeback, and then she blew it off, like it was nothing. So, maybe that's just modern wrestling that since no one believes anything, why do any angles? But then why do they do angles? I don't know. Let's see. There's 2 major injuries in Mexico, real injuries now. Charlie Manson, which is, of course, a stage name. This is Friday night in Ciudad Madero, was doing a ladder spot, and the ladder broke, and he was supposed to go through a table, and he missed the table, and his head on the floor, and he actually needed blood transfusion.
Just like Big Japan.
Very similar to Big Japan. Yeah, well, AAA is doing a lot of that extreme stuff. And, like the guy, Ryuji Yamakawa in Big Japan, suffered a cerebral hemorrhage just a couple weeks ago. And Tarzan Boy, who's one of the EMLL's, top stars, he was wrestling Monday in Puebla, and he was just coming off the ropes, and the rope snapped, and he just fell backwards on the floor and suffered a broken neck. And he's going to be out of action for 6 months. And I don't know, Brian, I don't know how much of Tarzan Boy you've seen, but he's a regular. He was on there just about every week.
Yeah, I was just watching last night the tape from a week and a half ago, and I mean, I've seen the rope break before because I think we've had a rope break twice, but I've never heard of anything that serious off something like that. Just like tumbling all the way to the floor and breaking your neck. That's bad. Yeah.
Tarzan Boy, like first glance, he looks almost exactly like Evan Courageous. When you see it, you almost think that it's the same guy. I'm not comparing their wrestling ability, although. Let me see. Reeser Bowden, who some of you who are longtime fans will know the name Reeser Bowden. He was the ring announcer and the interviewer on Mid-South Wrestling in the early 80s, in the days of the Irish McNeil Boys Club and all that. He passed away on Monday at the age of 74 from cancer. Not really a lot to say about him other than, he was just kind of a guy who was there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't remember him ever making any mistakes. I don't remember him being particularly colorful. He was just a guy who would announce the matches, and then he would just, when they would do the localized interviews, I remember seeing him, hand the microphone over to JYD, and, that's about it. I don't know what else to say about him.
Speaking of that lucha, I was just watching the show, and I was watching the AAA, I think it was from like 2 weeks ago, and they had the match with the Minis, and there was Masquerita Sagrada and Octagon Cito, and they were so awesome. And then later on in the show, out come the full-size versions, and they look so horrible in comparison. Just horrible.
Yeah. Octagon never really was good, and now, I wonder how old he is. He's been around forever. And, the Máscara Sagrada that they use is not even the original one. And the original one wasn't all that great either.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, Eric Angle made his pro debut last night in Louisville, Kentucky in a tag team match. It's Kurt's older brother. Let's see the match. It was Eric Angle and Ron Waterman, former UFC fighter, against Mr. Black and Jerome Kroney. And did not hear how Eric Angle did other than that Ron Waterman is improving and that Barry Orton is improving. And in fact, I've got a couple of OVW tapes just the other day. I'll probably sit down and watch them tonight. So anyway, that's the situation there. The main event they had was a 3-way with Flash, Rico Constantino and Nick Dinsmore for the OVW title, which Flash ended up with the title at the end. And the only WWF guy on the show was Bull Buchanan, WWF, regular guy, and he lost to Leviathan, who was, of course, their Superman over there. With the Bull Buchanan in RTC wear as a babyface, interestingly enough. So that's the story from the show over there. Any other big news to get to?
That's it.
Bob Wright. Oh, speaking of Bob Wright, they did an interview. He's the president of NBC, of course. He was asked about the XFL, and he said, of course, we're disappointed with the ratings, but we have a 2-year commitment to the show. And I'm just thinking, I don't know why he even says that, because it's like, they got to cancel it. I mean, realistically, and to say that it's just like someone's going to just look at that and go a month from now. I mean, I know that you don't want to say you can't say it's canceled publicly now because theoretically nobody would watch the last few weeks. Although I don't really think it would actually impact the ratings at all for the last 3 weeks because nobody's watching it anyway. But I don't know why you know what I mean? It's like I think it's like those things that you're supposed to say. Yeah. But why?
Kind of like Brad Siegel said till the very end.
Right, exactly. It's, yeah.
I finally got to watch that Vince McMahon on Bob Costas deal last night, and I thought during the XFL part, he didn't come off horrible, but there was just something about him where, his eyes were moving around and he looked really shifty, and then they got to the part where, actually there was a point where I even almost felt bad for Vince, because I saw him as this guy that really did have this dream of making this football league his whole life, and it was crumbling before his eyes. And for a brief moment, I felt
he wasn't even He wasn't even a football fan.
Well, he made it look like it was a dream, and it affected my heart for about 30 seconds. And then they showed the footage of Trish, and as soon as they came back, Vince he had that look on his face like, oh my God, they've got me here. And from that point, he snapped. Yeah. Mr. McMahon.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's like Phil Mushnick put you up to this, didn't he?
Hell yeah.
Yeah. It's your tape. It's one of the things that I think is the funniest about, a lot of the people, and this is not to, whatever. I mean, there's people who have good points, bad points, in between points, and you got to take it point by point. But even with Bozell, it's like, what was Bozell sending to all those people to get them to cancel their sponsorship? Tapes of WWF shows. It wasn't like he was, you know what I mean? It's like he was sending them tapes of their own shows. I mean, it's like...
It was like Vince was complaining. He's going, here you go, finding the absolute worst thing that you can find for my TV. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, what are they supposed to find? Like Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit mat wrestling? How are you going to start how you can start an interview with footage of that? You got to get something that... and he put it on TV himself. It was on the previous Monday, so...
That's right, it was the previous Monday.
The whole thing with the XFL is, why are you making all these complaints? Why don't you think about all this stuff before you started the league?
Yeah, well, that's a whole other story. I think they thought it was going to be a lot easier than it was. I think, one of the problems is that when you keep reading about how great you are over and over and over again, it's like, Gordon Solie actually was the one who, said this to me, many years ago, almost 20 years ago. And, he said, the one thing that kills everyone in wrestling is the day they read their press clippings and they believe them, because they're all fake. I mean, even the real press clippings are all fake. And what happens is, and it was actually in reference to Dusty Rhodes. And he goes, when Dusty started reading his press clippings and believing them, it was all downhill from there. And I think that with Vince was, he read all these stories and all these, Forbes and all these magazines about, he's the greatest promoter in the world. And he is the greatest wrestling promoter in the world, and he's the greatest wrestling promoter there's ever been. But that's wrestling. It's like me it's like me and you, Brian, if we did a show on football, we wouldn't be the best. We wouldn't be the best football hosts. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't know football that well. I mean, you don't know football at all, and I know it a little bit. I'd be the worst. What?
I'd be the worst.
No, but I mean, the whole thing is, and that's what Vince McMahon is going into football. It's like it's something, that he has peripheral knowledge of. I mean, everyone except for you grew up watching football. But I mean, his life is wrestling. I mean, it's 24/7 wrestling. And then to walk into football, he doesn't know all the little tricks of football. And then this whole thing with those rule changes. I mean, to me, that was just, when I heard that thing on yesterday's show, I mean, when I got the email during the show, I thought it was a joke. And then at the end, it's like, the Frank Jewett says, this is not a joke. And I'm going like, this is not a joke? I mean, that's how silly. You know, like, we're changing the rules for the playoffs, you know, and changing the way you score points. It's like, if they ever thought that anyone was ever going to take their game seriously, it's out the window now. I mean, that's something that they do at WrestleMania, you know, where, or that one, well, actually it's been on several pay-per-views, where, you know, you change the rules in the middle of the match, and half the time, you know, like, remember when WCW did that in the Jacques Rougeau thing? I mean, that doesn't even work.
Oh, yeah, with Mike Awesome and Storm.
Yeah, it's like, we'll change the rules in the middle of a match. Well, Flair did that with, remember that Scott Steiner-Kevin Nash match where Nash had to retire even though he won the first fall in like 10 seconds?
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, that's...
I mean, it's horrible even in wrestling.
Yeah, it doesn't even... Exactly. It's like not even good wrestling. And they're trying to take it to football, you know, which is like a real sport. And then they're out there going like, we have to appeal to the football fans. You know, the last thing the football fans want is this pro wrestling thing. I mean, they're almost... I'll tell you what, that decision... is every bit as stupid as some of the decisions made in WCW when they did that marketing study and then ignored it. Because these guys did their big marketing study, okay? And they found out that the audience that watches XFL, as small as it is, does not wants football, and they don't want pro wrestling. So then what do they do every week? Give them a pro wrestling angle. Well, they haven't in the last 2 weeks, but they did 3 weeks ago. And then now for the playoffs, it's like, oh, we're changing the rules of the game. You know, which, whatever. Anyway.
Well, you got to go down in flames.
And that's what
gotta go out with a bang.
Let's see. Want to start emails? Or
sure.
Okay. Whatever happened to Hulk Hogan? People are going to be asking that question in a couple of weeks, actually. He can't get on TV right now unless he goes to WWF. It's from Jason in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, who goes, with the recent death of WCW, I'm forced to watch WWF or not be a wrestling fan anymore, and that's just not possible. WrestleMania was a cool show, but I've decided to invest in a DirecTV dish. What can I see using the dish that I can't get from cable? I don't... As far as the DirecTV thing goes, the only stuff that I know of that you can get now would be the Galavision.
Yeah.
I don't know of... I mean, you can get the UFC...
Pride pay-per-views, too.
UFC and Pride, sure. You know, on pay-per-view. But as far as free TV, just the Galavision. Is there anything else? I mean, if people have a dish, if there's something I'm missing, let me know. But I don't know of anything else that's available other than the WWF programming, because there's no, I don't think I can get Wildside on with my DirecTV dish, or any of those other, groups. I know that if you have a satellite dish with a KU band, which is a totally different thing, which is actually something I probably should get, you can get the SmackDowns on Tuesday nights, because I know several people who are, that's why we get the stuff very often on the website Tuesday nights. People are actually watching the SmackDown on the KU band. There's half a dozen people around the country for various websites who do that. And also I know you can get the Memphis show on Saturday mornings. You can get that live. Channel 5 is up on satellite. So, I know like one of our listeners, Trent Walters in Edmonton, sends me the Memphis TV, every Saturday morning. So,
yeah.
I know you can get that with a KU band. I was almost, years ago, I was like going to do that, this is in the territorial days, but now, when there's no territories, it's kind of like, I always thought the KU band would be so cool. And I had one friend, who lived in another city who got it and was just like, getting all this different wrestling. They were getting the, you'd get the Mexico City stuff, like ahead of time, you'd get it, they would get it on the Sunday mornings when it was live instead of, not live, but the first airing in Mexico City as opposed to 2 weeks later as you get it in the United States and things like that. I thought it was like really cool, but just, by the time it was time for me to get a dish, it was kind of like, what's the point? There's so little.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. This is for, let me just see. Austin and Undertaker. Austin and Triple H against Undertaker and Kane looks like the main event of Backlash. I think we talked about that. This is from Scott Keith, who goes, now that it seems like they want to run that, I'm really starting to wonder if Vince is legitimately going insane or just slipping. It's too soon to say insane. Just from the Costas interview. Slipping, I think it's
insanity. How about that for a...
I think it's a weak main event. I'll say that. You should be smart enough to know the tag team matches, especially ones that were stale in 1999, don't draw on pay-per-view without some sort of a goofy stipulation. Uh-oh. They'll probably put the title up or something in the tag team, I got a feeling. That's why I'm afraid Undertaker and Kane are going to win the tag team titles before the show, and we'll get another match like in 1996 with Michaels and Nash against Yokozuna and Owen. Assuming Austin Triple H is going to be held off until SummerSlam or later, got a feeling it'll be SummerSlam. One can only presume that someone has it in their mind to do Austin and Undertaker for the 90th time and make people pay $29.95 for that too. Yes, that is the idea, as a matter of fact, for, I believe, the the May pay-per-view. I think when WWF honchos heard that the main events needed a shake-up, they misinterpreted it as turn Austin heel and switch around the usual main eventers to accommodate that instead of actually making an effort to do something new and interesting. The funny thing is, if they were willing to put as much effort into making guys like Benoit and Angle, they have put effort into Angle. You got to say that. I just don't know why he's not in the top 4. Into legitimate threats, as they are into the senseless Austin heel turn, they probably would freshen up the main events in no time flat. But I guess since Undertaker still has a bit of mobility left, and he gets a pop by putting his fist in the air like Kevin Nash, that's too much to hope for. Will you ever have Joey Styles as a guest? If Joey Styles wants to do the show, we will, but Joey Styles does not like doing shows like this, so that's your answer. It's from Vince Migliori, who says, if WWF stays consistent in the ratings they got this week for Raw, which they got a good number, do you think TNN will decide to give WCW a better time slot? I think it depends on the ratings.
WCW is going to have to get the good number.
Right. If the WCW
if they show up and get a 5-7, it'll be in prime time in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. If TNN brags about being a top 10 cable network, do they actually think that old episodes of Starsky and Hutch brought them there? No, they think the stupid commercials did. Anyway, if XFL is their number 2 show in the ratings, well, believe me, XFL is not their number 2 show in the ratings. It's not even close. It's their average primetime rating. Their average primetime rating is a 1.1. The XFL does an 0.5, so probably most.
Does the 1.1 include the Raw?
Yeah, but even without the Raw, it's still going to be like an 0.9 or 0.8. Yeah. But I mean, XFL, their average 24-hour-a-day rating, I think, was like 0.5. So the XFL is probably an average rated show for them. And since most of their stuff is reruns, and this one actually costs them money, it's not a good investment either. Let's see. WWF frequently running 2 house shows on a day in different cities. One city gets a crappy B-team show with a semi-good main event. Is this just greed on the part of the WWF? How long have they been doing this?
I don't know if you can exactly call it a crappy B-team show. I mean, there's usually an A show and a B show, but they at least give somewhat of a decent, top 2 matches for the B shows. It's not like Kai and Tai and Lowdown are headlining the B show.
Yeah, in some weeks, it depends on the size of the arena. If they have 2 equally sized arenas, they'll split the crew pretty equally. They do this on Sundays. If they have if they have one arena that's like 14,000 seats and one that's 7, obviously the 14 is going to get more stars, and that's kind of how they divide it. I mean, they started doing this because there's more of a demand for house shows than they can accommodate at every arena, and it gives them one extra show a week to do, and they're going to do it as long as people pay tickets for it, and when people stop paying for tickets, they'll have to cut back. And, that's the economic reality of business. So it's, when people stop going, then you gotta make, you gotta make changes. From John McPherson in Naperville, Illinois, who says, here's where the WWF is a victim of its own success. When the tide started to turn on the WWF sides in the Monday Night Rating War, one of the determining factors was the WWF's outstanding production value. They use their lighting, the music, the pyro, the whole package. You know what? I disagree. Okay? Because they turned it around. They did all the production and stuff after they started getting money and started turning around. The turnaround was from the wrestling angles. Because when they were turning it around, WCW had much better production. And they passed WCW up in production because they could afford to spend more money once they started the turnaround. So anyway.
I mean, part of the production problems for the WWF back then were just that there was no one there and you had to turn the lights down.
And they had to pipe in, that fake crowd noise because they didn't have enough crowd noise.
And I mean, during the wrestling war, if there isn't a lot of money to go around, they're going to try and spend money on talent before they're going to spend money on production. Well, they had to have a turnaround first.
Yeah. Okay. Because of this, I know the WWF would not even think about pulling the plugs on any of these entertainment packages, they're too worried about that it familiarized the fans with the wrestlers in such a way it would have never effect overall on what the wrestler does. But here's the thing. Austin's heel turn can be greatly benefited by pulling the plug on his intro. I think it's okay. It's okay. I heard everything's fine as far as the heel turn, as far as crowd reaction tonight on tonight's show. By simplifying it, no music, no lights, not him climbing the turnbuckles. Nah, they're not going to have a star come out with no music. That's too 70s. It's just this, and music's not that expensive. So, no, that ain't going to happen. Let's see. This wouldn't work for everyone, and I understand that. I mean, there's an understanding between Triple H, the WWF, its fans, that when he comes out, we cheer the performer for all he's done, but the second he picks up the mic, we turn from smart to kayfabes because that's what we've been conditioned to do, and that's okay with Triple H and us, and the WWF wants to state Austin 100%, or at least they should, By having a lavish ring intro, we have no way of disconnecting ourselves from everything that made us want to cheer him.
They could have given him maybe new music. I really think the first night they should have had him come out to Vince's music just because it would have helped. But he needs his own theme. I don't know if the same theme that got him over his babyface would work, but they could have given him something different, something slower, darker, or something. They got to sell CDs.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. When I just watched When Worlds Collide, which I hadn't watched in years, I have 3 questions. Is El Hijo del Santo really Santo's son? Yes. Is it true that about Santo's funerals in the size and being buried in his mask? Yes, I think that is true. And is there an observer that discusses Santo's death or his career? In 1984, when Santo died, I wrote an article, but it wasn't that elaborate. I didn't really have a lot of knowledge of... I knew who El Santo was. Everyone, if you grow up here, you're going to know who El Santo is. But, I didn't really have the knowledge of it. It's not like... And it was the same week that David Von Erich died, and that was, at that time, seemed like a tons bigger story. This is from Frank, who says, I enjoy your program, listen to it almost daily. I have a couple questions for you regarding the recent demise of WCW. I've been a fan of the business since the days of Georgia Championship Wrestling, and it was quite infuriating to see the company slowly die the way it did. It was totally infuriating. However, I still watched almost every Monday night. I was wondering if you have any idea or theory on why the powers that be in WCW continually refuse to listen to their fan base. If you look back at the vast majority of their idiotic booking decisions over the past few years and then looked at the feedback from the fans, it would seem that any fool could see that the fans were growing tired of the product, as was also proven by the decline in ratings. I was also stunned to find out that the company commissioned a survey to see what the fans wanted and ignored the feedback completely. So knowing Eric Bischoff and others in position of power of the company, personally, do you have any theory on why it continued why they continued to ignore the desires of their fan base?
The problem with the survey was done when Vince Russo was there to get the results, and I think that his idea was that he knew everything about wrestling and the fans did not, and therefore, the survey went right out the window.
Yep.
If Bischoff would have got that survey, it may have been a little bit different, but Russo, he had his mindset, and once he got the survey, right to the shredder.
Bischoff was too led by Hogan. That was one of his real undoings. And Hogan wanted what was best for Hogan and not what was best for wrestling. And I really think that was a big deal. And also he was led by the guys who Bischoff listened to the most were the guys who Bischoff thought had success and knowledge of wrestling, which were the Hulk Hogans and the Kevin Nashes, because they were the ones who had the ability to control the dressing room. And unfortunately, both of those guys had, again, their own interest at heart. And, I think Hogan's pretty smart to a lot of aspects of wrestling, and a lot of the stuff that Russo was doing, Hogan knew what was going wrong and all that. Nevertheless, when Hogan had the power, the thing was still declining. When Nash had the power, it actually declined faster than when Russo did, if the truth to be told, although Russo, I think, did more long-term damage. Again...
But Bischoff over the last year has at least shown the willingness to listen to other ideas.
Yes, he has. I think that the whole problem is that people who have run wrestling companies have always thought, and still do to this day, that the wrestling fans are stupid. So a survey of what wrestling fans want would be stupid. And it's a mentality that, and that's why they weren't. Now, when fans, like when the ratings tumble and the attendance tumbles and the buy rate really tumbles, which is what happened, that is a sign that you were doing something wrong, a lot more even than a survey. Not that the survey should have been ignored, because when you're going down, you got to figure out, okay, the people, when you were going down, the people that you had, and this is what they did actually, but this is the thing, you do not do a survey and ask the people who are still watching, what are we doing wrong? What you do is you go to the people who are no longer watching and go, why are you no longer watching? And those things are what you need to avoid doing. Now, and they actually did that and then ignored it, and that's why they're out of business, and they deserve to be out of business for that reason, too. This leads to the second part of the question. It seems inconceivable the company could be so poorly managed. It does from the outside.
And actually, it doesn't to me.
It doesn't to me because if you were there, when you're in the forest, you cannot see the trees or something like that. Whatever I just try to say. There's something to that. When you're in the inside, you don't see what people see on the outside. When you're at the arena at Nitro, you see a very different picture than what the person sitting at home watching television sees. When you're there, you all you feel is the pops, and the stars were the ones that get the pops, and you don't realize that even though those stars are getting the pops from a smaller and smaller segment of the crowd, that those same stars getting the pops are the reason that the audience is dropping, because they're sick of those guys and they need something fresh. And that's the problem of being there live. So anyway,
I mean, even people that follow it closely every day, I mean, I have people back there telling me the same thing. It was, you just cannot fully understand unless you're back here every Monday night. You know, no matter what anybody tells you, no matter what you hear every day, if you're not back here, you just don't really get it.
Yeah, but actually the problem is the ones that were there got it the least. It seems that it was purposely run into the ground. You know, it was not purposely run into the ground. It just was incompetently run into the ground. I know that sounds silly. Do you think there's any truth to that? No. After all, you're in business, and whatever business it may be, to be successful, you have to have a vision and see it through. They had no vision, by the way. But just as importantly, you have to be tuned into the wants of your core consumer base, in the case of the WCW fan, which obviously they were not. I believe these traits are what brought Vince to where he is today. I don't know if that's latency. Be successful. You have to have a vision. Vince had a vision, saw it through, absolutely, okay? But tuned into what the wants of your consumer base. Vince led his consumer base. You know, when Vince, I want to tell you something about 1984. The product that Vince in 84 and 85, when he went national, that was not a product that most wrestling fans wanted to see outside of the Northeast. I mean, maybe the Northeastern fans wanted it, but I could tell you that by and large, the wrestling fans in most part of the countries did not like that product, but it became because it got so much mainstream attention, they attracted so many new fans. You know, with Cyndi Lauper and all that, and just being, you know, on NBC, obviously, you know, that it didn't really matter what the existing fan base wanted anyway, because, you know, they were marketing to they were able to market to a greater base and sell, you know, Vince sold his vision of wrestling to the public. It was not the public's vision of wrestling at that time. That's what a good promoter does.
I think one of the differences is that when Vince gets information like demographic information and stuff like that and ratings information, I think that he really looks at that, but I think that when, like on the Bob Costas show, he has to actually talk about what that information is, he'll try and swerve, like, the general public. But he himself will really look at it, and so will the guys in the company, whereas in WCW, when they got that information, they would actually swerve themselves into believing something else.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that they swerve themselves in Titan Towers.
But they'll swerve everybody else who they're telling this information to. Vince's whole deal about, you know, last week the XFL game was number 2 in this demographic or whatever, and it's like, well, you had to add all 3 games up. So, you know, he's doing a swerve there, but I think he knows.
It's still a wrestling booking office, though, or a wrestling office. It's still that mentality, though. They're still swerving each other in that office, but no, not like WCW, where like people really didn't get it, and Vince obviously totally gets it. You know, so yeah. We got Nova up today. Nova, how you doing today?
Hey Dave, what's going on, man? I'm just here chilling out in New Jersey. Looking forward to being a guest on the show. This is cool.
Yeah, it's the first time we've had you on.
Yeah.
You're really you're becoming quite the world traveler between Mexico, Japan, and England over just a couple of week period, it seems.
Yeah, you know, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, like ever since, you know, everything went down with ECW, I just decided I didn't know what was going to happen in the future, but until then, I wasn't going to sit back and wait for somebody to come to me, that this would be a good chance to go see a bunch of different styles of wrestling and to go to some places that I never had the chance to go. And luckily, a lot of people called me, and Victor Quijones gave me a call from Mexico, and the FMW people called for Japan and stuff like that, and I'm gracious enough to be thought of to be able to go, and I'm going to make the best of it.
Now, how was, you worked, let's see, I forget the date now, but it was just a couple of weeks ago you worked at the El Toreo show in Mexico City. Is that the first time you ever worked Mexico?
Yeah, I had always heard of it, so I had, you know, one notion in my head of what it was going to be like, but this town and this arena was, I guess, outside of Mexico City. It was overwhelming. It had to be like 7,000 people there. The people were into everything. I mean, it was totally different crowd than up here, and if you were a foreigner, you were booed out of the building. I mean, they were big time for the hometown guys, Psychosis and Ray and everybody. But I had a blast. It was a great time, and I would definitely do it again.
Did you watch a lot of Lucha before you went down there?
Yeah, I watch, you know, everybody can call me Mark, whatever they want, but I watch all wrestling from around the world, whether it be Japanese, Lucha, Puerto Rico, catch wrestling over everywhere. So I was familiar with a lot of guys. I had never met them before, but I got a chance to meet Santo and Paraguayo and a lot of other guys. I met Dragon, so it was really cool.
Were you surprised how small those guys were, or did you kind of expect it?
No, I mean, some of the guys, they weren't, I mean, they're huge in stature, so the size thing didn't really put me off. Dragon was just about the same size I thought he was, and he's one of the arguably greatest wrestlers of all time, I think. And I met a lot of his students from Toryumon, and you know, I've always believed that you don't have to be big to be good. You got to be good to be good. So these guys, they were going. It was cool.
Was there anyone down there, as far as like when you were watching the matches, that you'd either never heard of or that we wouldn't know here that you were real impressed with?
Most of the guys from Toryumon were really good. I mean, they were encompassing a lot of the like strong style Japanese wrestling as far as the mat work and stuff like that, and they were, you know, incorporating some lucha spots and actually some of the American entertainment. So I didn't know some of their names off bat because like they were Japanese names and stuff. I had trouble pronouncing them, but I was impressed with Superboy. He was down there. I had never seen him before. You know, in person. I'd heard of him before, and Ricky Banderas is the first time I got to see him do anything, and I was impressed, you know, in person. So I was pretty impressed with him too. All the guys, they all worked really hard, and it was cool.
What's your thoughts as far as going to Japan on May the 5th?
I'm psyched. You know, I made a list for myself when I first got into wrestling as things I wanted to accomplish, and that was one of them. So, you know, get the chance to go to Japan. You know, I guess everybody always puts that as a precursor as where you can stack up, where you stand in the business, as your stuff is compared to everybody else's. So, because those guys go. And I'm really looking forward to it. Myself and Super Crazy are going to be fighting, I don't want to pronounce this wrong, but I think one guy's Onru and Goemon for the WWEW tag team title belt. I hope I can go over there and hold my own, and at least, you know, or these guys can carry me and make me look good, because I'm just going to try to hang with them and do my best.
What's your thoughts? You've done a couple of dates of late for WWF. What's your thoughts about everything there?
I was totally overwhelmed. It was awesome, a totally awesome experience. I mean, I got to meet everybody up there, from Bruce Pritchard, who's a class act, and Jim Ross was really cool, Kevin Kelly. Everybody's fantastic. It's the show. It really is. And it's literally like a moving Hollywood production. Everything from the minute you get there to the catering to how professional everybody is. Everybody looks good. Everybody's on time, and it's really professional atmosphere, and it kicked ass.
Did they give you any indications afterwards if they might have a spot for you?
I went. I did my best. I think I did good. Paul told me he was very proud of me, and then everybody, they liked the way I looked. They thought I made big improvements in my physique over the last couple of years, and they liked the way I handled myself, I hope. So I guess I have to wait and see.
You know, a lot of people have mentioned that in the last couple of months, you know, especially if, it was pretty noticeable on the last ECW pay-per-view, and then I haven't seen you on TV since then,
mm-hmm.
but a lot of people have mentioned, you know, your physique and everything. I mean, was there a thing where one day you just got in there and go, I'm changing my physique because that's the state of the art in this business, or was it just one of those? I mean, what motivated you?
A little of both. You hit it on the head. I had lifted weights for a couple of years, you know, and but you know, I was from the mindset that, you know, I could eat whatever I want, I could do whatever I want. I wasn't one of those individuals that was blessed with good genetics. So everything I have had to work for. And I guess it was right around last March or April, I started saying to myself, well, if anything ever happens to ECW, the only way I'm ever going to get a job anywhere else is to look as good as I can. And if I want to ever become, I mean, no one's ever going to confuse me with Benoit or Tiger Mask or Dynamite as far as ability goes, but if I ever want to be the best wrestler I can be, I'm going to have to get in shape. So I don't do much else except literally eat, sleep, and breathe wrestling. So I guess in that aspect, I consider myself more like a professional athlete than just a wrestler. So I just started reading about techniques of training and supplementing and dieting and training. Now I go to the gym 6 days a week, 2.5 hours a day. An hour, that's every morning. I go at 6 a.m. to do cardio before I eat breakfast. Then I start my supplements throughout the day, and, you know, I calibrate how much I eat, what I'm going to have, how much carbohydrates, how much protein. So it's you know, some people might think it's a shitty way to live, but it works for me, and I made an improvement, so it worked.
As far as that's a lot of training. I mean, as far as your weight, what is your weight now as compared to what it was before? Is it down or is it about the same?
To give you an indication, when we were doing the BWO, I guess that was 96 or so. I was 260 pounds at about 38% body fat, and now I'm down to about 195 at about 7%. So
wow, that's a lot.
It is. I mean, Meanie started really getting me going too. When Meanie started losing his weight, and like together we'd be like, pushing each other and that kind of stuff. And I just got tired of being out of shape, So now, I mean, I like to get the compliments on it because people noticed it, and it's cool. It feels much better. It feels much better to be like this than it did to be at that. So.
As far as in the ring goes, is it much easier to wrestle with the lighter weight?
The difference is it's uncalculable. The difference. I can do things now I couldn't do before. I don't get winded as easy. I mean, before if I did like a tackle, drop down, hip toss or something, I'd be blown up and huffing and puffing. But I could always rely on just turning around and jumping up and down and hooting and hollering and getting a laugh. But like I said, I wanted to be the best wrestler I could be physically. So these are what I had to do. So I really shifted the last year or so, going away from worrying about coming up with this or coming up with that, and just worrying about becoming a better overall athlete.
What? And this is probably a tough question.
Okay.
As far as all of the different, you're watching all the tapes of all the different styles of wrestling. Is there anyone that influences you more than others, or are you just trying to take in a little bit of, you take in a little bit of, there's something to be learned from every style, I think.
I literally think that every wrestler in this business can learn something from everybody else. I learned a lot from over the years of watching like Ric Flair about, how to really get the most out of an opponent. I learned a lot from Shawn Michaels, how to really try to make other people look good. Dynamite Kid, Tiger Mask. Even recently, I've watched Shima over in Toymon. Even Ray Jr., Psychosis, everybody. I've taken a little bit of everything from everybody. See, even guys from our own company. I used to watch how Dreamer would sell his ass off just from getting punched. Sabu, I used to watch how he would sell his own bumps even when he gave them. He'd get up smart and, hurting himself. Little things you can learn. I mean, I don't think there ever comes a point where you can say, okay, I know it all, I'm done. Lance Storm, I learned a lot from watching Lance, from wrestling with PJ. These guys taught me a lot. Raven, he taught me a ton. So, I don't think you ever stop learning if you're a true fan and a true, competitor.
What was it like, I would say that like at the end of ECW, but when, for different guys, when the realization hit that ECW was really done. I mean, it's kind of like, not just a job, but, kind of like, in a way, it was kind of like a family.
Yeah.
And how long did it take to accept that?
I don't know. It's funny still even saying it because I'm almost, in the back of my mind, fully believe that in one sense or another, it's going to come back somehow. I don't know, it's like a developmental territory or maybe a whole full-blown territory. I don't know. But I guess after the last pay-per-view, some people were grumbling and it kind of set in a little bit. But over the last couple months or so, you lose touch with people you started seeing every weekend. And like I still talk to Chetty and a couple other guys, and Guido and Dreamer all the time. But otherwise than that, I really haven't seen anybody. I've seen Paul, but, I guess everybody handles it differently. But you're right, it was a family thing. I mean, every week I was spending more time with those guys than I did my own family, and it's kind of tough. I don't know how everybody else deals with it, but I just kept saying, well, I guess it's time to move on and do something else. I'm not going to give up now, so.
What's Chetty's status with the WWF? Or anything?
He's up. He's the same thing. Chris has got a lot of irons in the fire. He's just got married 6 months ago. He has a baby girl, and he's doing the dart. He did the dart matches just like I did. He got good reviews, I think. I'm pretty sure he did, and I hope in a perfect world I'd wind up with him, and we could both be working for the same company again somewhere. I had a good time with Chris. I thought we did pretty well as a team together, and he was a good guy. He's one of my best friends, actually, in wrestling. I trust him pretty much with everything.
Now, did he assume that he was going to get a developmental deal, or why did you guys do the loser leaves town match at the pay-per-view? I don't know. I don't know where the cross-communication was. All I know is that I got there that day, and it was set up as such. I thought we were going to do it for a couple months, like a long feud, and I was looking forward to that, but, circumstances prevailing, boom, right there that day we did it. That was probably the hardest match I ever had in my life, as far as everything that was involved in it and emotionally and that kind of stuff. And, so once I got through it, I was like, wow, it's pretty big. So I don't know. I don't know what the assumption was, what went wrong, where, I don't know.
Now, are you going to England for just one show?
Yeah, it's for April 21st for the FWA, I believe. And they contacted me to come and do it, asked me if I'd come and do it. And I said, sure, sounds great to me. I've never wrestled in England before. And I'll leave like 2 days beforehand, do the show, and stay for another day and come home.
As far as you've done a lot of independence, even while in ECW and a lot more since. Are there any? What's life like as far as like on the independent scene? Are there good and bad places, and what are your favorite places?
Well, I'm not really one to have ever done independents just for the sake of doing them. I've always lent myself to the better independents because I believe that you're a reflection of what you do. So the independent wrestling as a whole, you guys know just as much as I do. It pretty much sucks. I mean, you got guys in the ring with pretty much no training, with just t-shirts and jeans, with no formal wrestling ability.
Khakis.
They went to school and they learned how to work.
Khakis, Brian.
Yeah, they went to a wrestling school run by a guy who's been in the business a year. But when I went to Iron Mike Sharp's wrestling school, that's somebody who should have a school. Taz, Perry, they had a school. They should. Les Thatcher, these guys should have a school. As far as the good independents, Phoenix Championship Wrestling, my brother Donnie B runs that. That's really good. And hands down, the best I've ever done is Rick Bassin's UPW. Hands down. From top to bottom, from the woman, Elaine, who handles the flights, all the way to Tom Howard, to the production people, to Rick himself. First class, unbelievable how professional everything is, and I truly look forward to going to California every time I go out there, and I'll be out there again at the end of April. So
you're looking at Edge and Christian, right?
Yeah, me and Frankie Kazarian. So I circle that one on my calendar. I'm like, I actually go a few days early, 1 or 2 days early, so I can go to Gold's Gym out there and train for a couple days out there, and then do the show and come home the next day. So I have a great time.
That atmosphere-wise, I just think that like it's such a cut above just when I think of independent wrestling as far as just that theater is awesome.
Yeah.
Like every like you're so close to the ring,
mm-hmm.
and you just I don't know. It's just it seems like you're going to a major league show. It doesn't seem like you're going to an independent show.
I don't even know if we can. I don't even know if I can classify as an independent. I don't know if there was a hovering zone between independent, like if there was a phantom zone between independent wrestling and the big two leagues, whatever. I guess that'd be hovering right
big
now.
One.
Big one.
Yeah, a big
the
one.
Real
Yeah.
big one.
So I guess it fits right in there. I mean, it's big league in every sense of the word, except that they don't have like a major television outlet and they don't have the biggest stars in the world. But I mean, if being big league was ranked on professionalism, how everybody handled themselves and how everybody looked and catered to each other, then that'd be right up there. It's unbelievable.
We should start hitting 2 phone calls. We're going to start with Dave in Cincinnati. Dave, what's going on?
Not much. Dave, I just wanted to tell you I was going through some of those old observers from 1987 and looking at the NWA buying UWF. I see so many similarities with the WWF, WCW thing and the NWA, UWF. It is
what's funny, Dave, is I was reading those same observers about 2 weeks ago, and it just hit me right in the face, just what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like some of these ideas. It's like they're going to only do TV tapings, and then when the UWF business picks up, they're going to start running house shows. It sounds like what the WWF is planning to do.
Yeah.
Like I think basically.
And like hold off the Super Bowl until you don't even have one.
Yeah, and then the only difference is that Jim Crockett, I believe he promised everybody in the UWF a spot, and Vince McMahon is basically hiring whoever's got the lowest figure contract.
Well, Shane did give that speech.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to get a chance. A clean slate.
Yeah, but with Jim Crockett, I mean, he hired most of the guys, and then there were a lot of talented guys that he starved out. Steve
Williams, his market value dropped quite a bit from the time
how about Terry Taylor?
Right, Terry Taylor, wasn't he like I remember how lowly at Starrcade 87 he was portrayed pretty low on that card, and that he was dropped down quite a
Terry Taylor at that period of time, Terry Taylor was like one of the most awesome workers in the entire business when that sale came through. And, he just never got a push with Crockett. I mean, he was turned into a preliminary guy right away. Chris Adams was a big star in Texas and a pretty decent star in Mid-South. He was, they used him as, very preliminary stuff, and pretty much his career never really recovered from it.
Some of those guys never really got a chance with Titan either. Like, they signed Sam Houston. Whatever happened to him?
Well, Sam Houston was actually a really good worker. It was just, he was too small for what Titan wanted in those days as far as, weight-wise. They weren't looking for thin guys. And he was a thin guy. So he was, in that family, I remember, everyone in the family used to say, Sam, as far as, physically in the ring, he was the best worker of the family, and he was the one who, was, they had Nicola, who was his wife at the time, not any longer, was where was she? She was working wherever, I guess for Crockett. And then they had, what was it? Jake, of course, was a superstar in that era. And Grizzly was a road agent and, for I think WWF at the time. And after Mid-South. And, who was the other one? The, Rockin' Robin.
Yeah, Rockin' Robin.
And she was like the women's champion of WWF. So they all got a bigger push than he did, and he was physically the best, performer of all of them.
Yeah, but I think the sign will be how strongly Vince McMahon pursues Ric Flair or Bill Goldberg. I think what fans want to see is the WWF's presentation of guys like Bill Goldberg and Ric Flair. I think if you were to sign a Bill Goldberg and then you were to maybe raid The Rock, I mean, you'd have a hot promotion, I think.
You're right. You would.
But I mean, if you look at the list of the guys that the WWF signed, with the exception of Stasiak, they're either guys that are good workers or guys that have the potential to be good workers. I think that's what Vince McMahon is basically doing. He's signing guys.
I think
it's more a lot of their mid card though. It wasn't even like they had to search them out.
I think that they were just looking for guys with good, guys with good contracts that they could cut right away.
Well,
and resign to their own contracts. I don't think
they're looking for guys that can build the future of the World Wrestling Federation.
I don't think they chose them that way.
They're weeding out.
I think they chose them. I really think they chose them based on on what their contract status was and the fact that none of them had big contracts except for maybe Storm and Awesome. And Storm and Awesome, I think that they probably felt that first of all they could cut him and sign him to a good deal, and that they had a lot of potential to do something with him.
I mean, coincidentally, those guys just happen to be good workers, but I don't think it's like they got a list of everyone on the roster and went, we'll take all these guys.
Well, Stasiak has that look. They liked his look. It just didn't work out the first time, so, maybe they can, you know what I mean?
How much do you think Jeff Jarrett was making? I don't think Jeff Jarrett is anywhere near a top guy. I mean, I think he's mid-card talent, but I think he's, compared to a lot of the other guys on that roster, I think he's very solid. And
he's a good worker. He's a good worker. I mean, his contract was, Jeff Jarrett's thing, obviously was more. I don't even think it was his contract. Jeff Jarrett was the last day that he was in the WWF. I think that's what this is all about.
I think Jeff Jarrett is wishing that he would have never done that.
Probably.
You think he's wishing that he would have
I think there's a lot of people wishing they had done a lot of things about now.
There's a lot, Lex Luger. There's a lot of people who are wishing, there's a lot of people, nobody ever saw the day where there would be no alternative, and because everyone assumed, the assumption was Ted Turner would never, let wrestling die on that station.
One guy I hope gets picked up, and I know you're going to really hate me for saying that, but is Sid Vicious, and not because I like him, but
you're right, I do. I hate you.
Terrible injury, and for him to suffer that terrible injury and come back with no job.
Okay, you're right. You're right about that. That's really sad because that was a horrible injury. You're right. But the thing with what nobody foresaw, is aside from the cancellation, is that Ted Turner would not be a powerful force in the television industry. I mean, Ted Turner is like he's out. You know what I mean? He's got a title, but he's all but fired. And nobody saw that.
He may not have that title much longer.
If you remember, the WWF also raided some office people from the UWF. They also raided I saw they got Bruce Pritchard.
Ted DiBiase, Bruce Pritchard.
They raided the promoter guy, Paul Bretsch.
Paul Bosch, that was a big deal. Joel Watts came along, which was a real big deal. I mean, it wasn't a big deal. It was a big deal in that it was Bill's son was working for Vince McMahon, which was very weird, even though he didn't last that long.
Well, that's one of the things. I think they're going to sign a couple of guys like maybe Arn Anderson or Fit Finley or Johnny Ace, a couple of guys the guys in that promotion that are actually competent and still have legs. I think my personal opinion is that they're signing guys that have potential to contribute to the WWF because the
guys they're going to keep. That's what they're going to keep them on. Absolutely, the guys who they think who have the potential for the future. Sure, that's all that you can.
With the guys on that WCW roster, even if it's a good product, I don't think anybody's going to go out of their way on Saturday nights at 11 o'clock to tune into that.
If Rock and Goldberg and Flair are there, they will.
If they have the Rock, Goldberg, and Flair, and it's your only chance a week to see those three guys, they probably would do well, actually.
Yeah, but what are the chances of Vince going after those guys?
It's all to Vince.
Also, on that first rating.
Guys who
you're right.
Don't really have a high opinion of Bill Goldberg in the WWF, like Triple H, Chris Jericho.
I mean, let me tell you something about that first show. If they do that show and every fan in the audience is chanting Goldberg, and they end up drawing a 1.7 rating or something like that, Vince is going to go after him.
Well,
he's not a total idiot.
Bill Goldberg, look at his contract.
It's not even
look
partial
at how many days he has to work
true.
to. Look at Joel Goldberg's contract and look at what he has to do to make the money out of that contract.
I know. So it's going to cost a lot of money.
But he's going to have to look
him.
at the long run of how long this show's going to last, getting a 1.7 with these fans wanting Goldberg every single week.
I can see Vince wanting Ric Flair, but if Ric Flair is making $800,000, I don't see Vince offering Ric Flair 7 figures. I just don't see him offering anybody that age,
especially someone who's not going to be wrestling. No, it's going to be Flair's going to be a tough one, and you know.
But I think if Ric Flair were to wrestle like a couple matches a year, I think he could if they had good interviews building up to it, I think a Ric Flair versus Rock match, I think could draw money, and I think the interviews would be phenomenal.
The interviews would be great.
Kurt Angle?
The interviews would be great. Ric Flair and Kurt Angle would be... Actually, I would love to see that even now. Just to see it once. Kind of like people saw Ric Flair and Buddy Rogers when they actually wrestled, even though Buddy was old. Cool. We're going to hit a few emails and go back to the phone lines. This is from some Bobby, who goes, I've got DirecTV. The only programs you can get are the WWF and the Galavision shows. Okay, just to clarify this, because we've got a couple of emails about this. The Galavision shows on this DirecTV air for 3 hours. They're from 8 to 11 Eastern Time. That means here on the West Coast, it'll be from 5 to 8 on Tuesday nights, and it's on Tuesday nights on the Galavision channel. And here, like in San Jose, it's interesting because we have Galavision on cable as well. So theoretically, I actually have the chance where I could watch the 3 hour. It airs Pacific time on the West Coast feed. So if you live like in this area, if you got a dish, it's 5 to 8. But if you're watching it on television, it'd be 8 to 11. So a lot of people get confused about that, as I always used to. This is from someone who goes, I just saw a video of Andre the Giant in Japan. There he seems so much more lively and entertaining. Do you agree? No, did you ever watch like Andre tapes when Andre was a heel in Japan way before, in the 70s and 80s?
Oh yeah.
I used to think he was way better there too.
Yeah, it is two totally different atmospheres, I think. I think over here Andre was more looked at as like I don't want to put this the wrong way, but not the sideshow, but like an attraction. And not that he wasn't at Japan, but over in Japan, I mean, literally in that atmosphere, these people thought they were seeing God. So I think he got off on it. I think it was a great feeling for him to have, and it's just two totally different atmospheres.
Probably a lot younger and more agile too.
Yeah, even when he was even I mean at the end he wasn't agile, but I mean like if you go like say 1979, 1980, I mean there was the Andre in Japan and the Andre in the United States they were just like two different people that were the same size.
Yeah, those you gotta I guess. It's that certain intangible, that one variable that a lot of people discredit is that the crowd is that intangible that sometimes can make guys do things they normally wouldn't do, and it can bring out the best of you, So I guess that maybe sometimes when Andre went to Japan, he just felt that reaction and just, like I said, it made him do things they normally wouldn't do.
Yeah, he was a total heel over there. The other thing is that in Japan, Andre was, I think that they accepted him as like this, more of an athlete, whereas here, like you said, he was more of a sideshow.
Yeah.
Kind of like he was more of a gimmick here, where there, he really wasn't a gimmick, he was just this fear, absolutely feared athlete because, he was just, especially in Japan, but, to all the wrestlers in that era, he was so much bigger and he was absolutely frightening, especially if you're a Japanese kid.
He was definitely an attraction. I mean, he goes overseas. Like I said, these people probably thought they were seeing like a god walking into their arena. They couldn't believe it. Whereas I guess
Godzilla.
Yeah, exactly. Or King Kong coming to fight Godzilla. And over here in the States, I mean, the American wrestling fans appreciated him, but to an extent. But I mean, if you weren't a wrestling fan, the only thing you probably knew him. Oh, there's that big freaky looking guy who was Bionic Bigfoot. You know what I mean? But that's the best way I can put it.
By the way, I'm sure glad that the Bionic Redneck thing, by the way, only lasted one day.
Really? I thought that was awesome.
Oh, I hated that nickname. But with Andre, the other thing is in Japan there was some about Andre the Giant and Antonio Inoki was just a really great program. I mean, just fit for Japan perfectly because you had this guy who was, their hero going against this guy who was just so enormous, and they actually worked pretty well together given both guys' limitations. I mean, they had a great drama.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're breathing too much into this, but could they have done that almost in a mindset like, okay, this is Japan versus the world. This is our country versus the other countries. You know what I mean? Like, here's our hero.
It's our national.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the ultimate for them because this is our national hero going up against a guy that absolutely there's no way he can beat, but somehow, he would pull it off.
Yeah, that's what that's one way to look at it. So, in that whole grand scheme, I guess, Antonio Inoki's win for everybody, and everybody goes home happy, and it makes, I guess, the whole country better, and more people pay to see it, and the bottom line is more yen for everybody. So, whatever.
This is an interesting question for this week. Is what is Tiger Chung-Lee up to? The last time I saw him, he was in Blind Fury with Rutger Hauer. He's actually wrestling for All Japan Pro Wrestling, believe it or not, as Kim Duck, which is
I read that, yeah. I was a big fan of his back in the day. I mean, whether it was Kim Duke or Tiger Chung-Lee, whenever he was on Saturday mornings, I couldn't turn off my TV. I was hooked. Him and S.D. Jones are my favorites, yeah.
Well, you're like the only one.
Huh?
I don't know what happened to S.D. Jones.
I don't know. I mean, I was more partial to the Antigua S.D. Jones than the Philadelphia S.D. Jones. But, one and the same. Well, since my trainer was Mike Sharp, he was a perennial favorite of mine, too. But, all those guys, they hold a special place for me.
It's from Jared K., who goes, how much of the $1 million in merchandise from WrestleMania was from the Access, opposed to the actual show? All of that figure was from the actual show. I don't even know what they did at the Access. I'm afraid to ask.
Oh, my God.
It's probably obscene. They made so much money that weekend. Because this was $25 a head just to get in, to buy merchandise, and they had all that, I mean,
they sold out all the Chris Benoit shirts. It's like the only shirt sold out.
Really? They probably didn't bring as many as they brought of Steve Austin shirts, though.
That's probably true.
So
unbelievable. It's a true testament. I mean, people are always bitching and complaining. Oh, maybe the business is a down cycle. Maybe this, maybe that. But then something like WrestleMania happens, where all-time gates are being achieved and record merchandise and all this other stuff. And I'll be interested to see what the pay-per-view buy rate was. But I'm sure it was, really good.
It's gonna be big.
It's gonna be big. We just don't know how big yet.
Yeah. So. That's my argument back to all these people who almost want to see wrestling go into a slide. They're, these people are like constantly downplaying it, like, oh, it's going to go away. So this is my answer back to them. Ha.
Okay, this is from Candy, who goes, I have to disagree with the poll on your website about which country produces the best wrestlers. Currently in the poll, Canada is leading by a wide margin. Well, I agree with you. There are some great wrestlers out of Canada, without a doubt, but I wouldn't say the most. While there's no question Canada's produced some of the industry's greatest wrestlers, U.S. clearly produces better wrestlers and in a larger quantity. I would think that from a quality standpoint, per population, Canada actually produces more than the United States, but because there's so many more people in the United States, they produce more. And actually, I mean, Mexico produces more wrestlers than anyone, just because there's more wrestling in Mexico than anywhere else.
Yeah, that's part of your birthright, I think. When you come out of the womb, you come out with a mask on. So,
But what a lot of people don't realize about, like we hear about like the shows like, in Mexico City a little bit, or maybe like Tijuana, but in Mexico, I mean, like every city of any size has weekly wrestling and there's so many local guys in every city. I mean, there's way more wrestlers. Now they're not full-time professional wrestlers that you would, polished workers or anything like that, but there's more wrestlers, I would say, in Mexico than anywhere else. And I think that probably from a quality standpoint, I mean, I used to think Japanese wrestlers, from a quality standpoint, were the best. I'm not sure. I don't know now. Now, because the quality of American wrestling, I think, has really gone up in the last 5 years. Wouldn't you say so? Real, like just the work rate and everything. The younger guys are really.
So. I think, what it was? I think the Japanese, not that I'm saying that this is a direct cause or effect, but I mean, if American wrestlers look back and they saw what the Japanese wrestlers were doing and they saw what the Canadian wrestlers were doing, maybe some of them said to themselves, okay, shoot, it's time to turn the bar up a little bit. And, a lot of guys took their games to the next level, really came up and turned a lot of heads. So I'm interested to see where Zimbabwe is on that list of good wrestlers, because, I've often wondered that myself. That and Jamaica. I know they have a bobsled team, but I don't know about pro wrestling. So I'm going to put that on my list of countries to visit. So.
That was a great movie, though, the Jamaican bobsled team.
Oh, get on up! It's bobsled time. It's fantastic. I mean, if they could do something with pro wrestling, I mean, you got a work of art. For Scrooby on the mat, get that.
I think a lot of
another thing is a lot of those guys coming to America, in the early or the mid '90s, and like showing up on Nitro, and everyone just getting to see it for the first time, and a lot of guys, wanted to turn it up after seeing it there.
Yeah, you got to remember too. I mean, any fan who's really delved and done a lot of research over it. You got guys like, a perfect example, a Canadian and a Japanese wrestler, a British wrestler, I'm sorry, too, a Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask, who were legitimately doing stuff in 1983 and 1984 that guys are doing now, and they were, 15, 16 years ahead of their time.
They were so ahead of their time. You know what's funny about Tiger Mask, the original Sayama?
Yeah.
About a year ago, I brought some tapes of Sayama stuff, which I hadn't watched probably in 8 years, and aside from the fact it was a lot of the stuff that actually is being done now, which when I first watched it, none of it was being done, but even so, I think he's still the quickest guy I've ever seen as far as like his ability to move on the mat that I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's almost like watching literally like one of those slippy snakes. I mean, you just couldn't hold on to it. I mean, it's like an eel, just moving around constantly. I mean, I was hooked when I saw him stand in the middle of the ring and somebody was standing in the back of him, and he jumped in the air and did a full backflip rotation, and out of that, he drop kicked somebody from behind. My jaw hit the ground. I was like, this guy is unbelievable. And then I found out, the years of training that it took even to try to attain that level of gymnastics and wrestling and overall. And you could take the tape of those matches today and put them in, and I'll put those up against anything that everybody's doing now. They were so ahead. That's why they're two of the best of all time. They didn't get that way by accident. They didn't win the lottery. They got that way because they're good.
I gotta say, for Sayama, that I think he's one of the most amazing athletes all around because he had. It was one of those things where you talk about, like, the blending of styles. He went to Europe. He learned the European style. He went to Mexico, learned the Mexican style. He had the Japanese background, plus the kickboxing, because he did some kickboxing, and he blended it all together, and it was just, he was 15 years ahead of his time.
Easily. He was like a hybrid athlete, you know what I mean? Like, it's a shame that, he I guess, I don't know if he's fully retired now. You guys know that better than I am.
He's kind of doing a retirement tour, but, he's old now. He hasn't been the same since the mid-'80s anyway.
I think every young high flyer, everybody in the business has seen his stuff and said, Dynamite and all these guys now and said to themselves, wow, these guys were incredible. There's so many good athletes today, too. I mean, like every other sport, the guys just get bigger, stronger, quicker, and faster. But those are a couple of guys that'll be around for the ages, I think.
The other thing about those two guys historically, what I think is real important, and to a lesser extent Mysterio later, is they opened up the size barrier. Because, when we were all kids, if you weren't a legitimate, say, 210, you really didn't have, and they would announce you at 225. Mm-hmm. You really couldn't get in. I mean, forget about ability. You could be, if you were 180 pounds and you had the greatest ability in the world, unless it was like in the Memphis area, you wouldn't even get through the door.
Absolutely, you'd be on Saturday mornings, and that's it. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
That goes to prove my theory that you got to be good to be good. You ain't got to be big to be good. And guys like Dynamite and Tiger and Shawn and Brett and all those guys, they really changed it for everybody.
Yeah, Shawn too. Because Shawn was the one where he's the only one of guys that size that really got to main event, and get the push and get to beat the big guys on his own terms, as opposed to being like fluke, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even before that, though, in some of the other territories, you had Jeff Jarrett, and to a certain extent, Ric Flair wasn't the biggest guy, and some of the other guys too that were really, it's like every couple of years, guys were not necessarily getting smaller, but they were emphasizing more ability and more actual wrestling, and Bob Backlund and stuff like that. But of course, then they went to Hogan. But these guys were good, and that's what people, I guess, wanted to see overall. So I was happy about it.
Let's go to Dan in Chicago. Dan, what's going on?
Hey guys, what's up? How you doing today?
Great.
Okay. My question is, does Vince McMahon own the rights to the New World Order?
Yeah.
He does.
Does he?
Yeah.
Does he? I'm not sure.
I think that's where the trademark's about was NWO.
Okay, he may have. I don't know.
Do you think he'd do it?
No, I don't think he would do it. But it just means no one else can do it.
All right, so it was starting to look like to me all signs were pointing to that on Monday with Triple H and Stone Cold.
No.
Pointing towards
NWO? Certain people were fighting with each other.
No. I mean, it was pointing towards it in that they were trying to copy, and they were. The idea of the super heel group that's beating up all the baby faces, with Austin and Hunter together, yeah. But to use the name NWO, I think that if Vince used the name NWO, everybody would groan because it's just Vince, just for ego purposes. It was
killed at the end, that whole name.
Yeah, but for ego purposes, he's not going to use some name that Eric Bischoff came up with. Okay. He's just not going to do it.
Okay.
But if he bought it, it's obviously to keep Eric Bischoff from using it or somebody else from using it somewhere else.
Is there any chance that you guys know of their old music being anywhere, like on a CD or anything?
Old WCW music being available now or in the future?
Now and in the future.
Doubtful.
You don't think so?
They have that one WCW CD, but I don't think anything's on there except like the Wolfpack theme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
I know a lot of the
not
stuff
gonna-
they used was like that. I don't even know what it's called, but like the
Elevator
generic music that.
Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah, like Goldberg's theme. They didn't need to buy that because they could just use it anytime they want because it's in the public domain.
Yeah.
Okay, and my other question is, what's going on with Bob Ryder and Jeremy Borash? Do you know if they're going to have their internet show anytime soon?
Not anytime soon, unless they get some sort of. If the WCW Live is done because there's no WCW.
Right. Because they had said that they were going to maybe go on One Wrestling or something and do that.
They may. I don't know. I don't know.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Okay, let's go to Sam in New York. Sam, what's up?
Hey guys, I was wondering if during his tenure in the WWF, if Scott Steiner and Vince hated each other, didn't get along, or what?
No, they did not hate each other at all. There was a problem at one point when they first came in because they were very rough on people, and Vince had to kind of tell them that we don't operate like that here. Because in WCW they were allowed to get away with being very rough on people, and I think the first couple of TV appearances they had, Vince kind of said, hey, you don't do that stuff here, and they didn't, they weren't, but there was no real problem. I think what happened with them in WWF was, economics were different in wrestling then than now, and at that time, they were able to make more money just working Japan than WWF, so it was a better move on their part to just quit WWF and go to Japan, so that's probably the reason they left. It had nothing to do with them and Vince didn't get along. I never heard of anything like that.
Okay, and Nova, which wrestler would you most like to work with in the WWF?
If I had my choice, my ultimate choice would be Shawn Michaels. I think he's the best wrestler of all time for me. But there's so many guys that are good. When I was there doing a couple matches, man, I was in awe. Everybody is so good. They're on. Everybody's timing is impeccable. It's everybody. They're there for a reason. And I would love to do maybe something with Jerry Lynn when he starts up. Well, I don't know, Tajiri. I never got to wrestle either one of those guys in ECW. And the Hardys, Edge and Christian. So the list is endless. There's a lot of possibilities.
Okay, why wasn't Pete Rose at WrestleMania?
I don't know. Maybe he lost a bet and he couldn't make it. I don't know.
I think maybe they just felt that they'd done everything with that joke that they could.
I had
obviously
for the Gooker.
Maybe they would put him in the Hall of Fame when he got pissed.
I don't know.
Whatever. Obviously, I think that they could have afforded him. So it's just a question of I think they just figured we got no new ideas for him, and I guess I figured the Battle Royal itself was going to be the comedy, and they didn't need a second. I don't know.
I was just thinking with that hardcore match that Pete Rose could run in and win the title, have Kane kill him.
Well, that was Brian's idea.
It wasn't an idea I was recommending. It was just an idea that I thought they were going to do.
I think that maybe they just wanted to put the title on Kane and just leave, just have that be the story rather than confuse the story.
Is with the Rock suspension storyline on SmackDown, is that his explanation for being gone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And is there a reason why Triple H had to go over Jericho for the 3,000th time? It's just
I'm sure there is.
It's just getting old. Like every month, right when Jericho's getting over, Triple H has to squash him, and
No, actually, Jericho's been in the same position for a while now, but there was that period in July of last year where Jericho was really on the verge. And I don't know what happened then, because he was when Jericho and Triple H had that match, was it the July pay-per-view? The really awesome match? Fully loaded, I think.
Oh, yeah, the Last Man Standing.
Last Man Standing. And when that match was over, it was like, man, Jericho's got it. He's on top now. That's what I was thinking coming out of it, even though he lost. And then all of a sudden he was back in the same position.
X-Pac.
What? Yeah, and then he had a feud with X-Pac, so he ended up back down to, where he'd been and where he still is.
Do you think Canyon's going to be in WCW?
Yeah, I think he'll wind up there, yeah.
Okay, because he's my favorite there, and I was hoping he'd make it.
Yeah, I hope he does too. He's a good worker, and that's why I'm pretty sure he'll make it.
Okay, thanks, guys.
It's from Craig, who goes, what is the current status of Aja Kong and Arceon? Is she gone for good, or is this a work? I think that what happened in the ring itself was a sort of work, but she is gone. They had a split. They had a business split, and she's not working for Arceon any longer. This is from someone who goes, I'm having an argument with a friend, which, by the way, you're about to win. I need it settled. Am I correct that Chris Jericho used to wrestle in Japan on occasion as Super Liger? I think he actually only did once, but it was, in fact, Chris Jericho. Because I even showed my friend the tape, but he still refuses to believe it. If so, what exactly created this angle? It was basically like, the Octagon Pentagon and, you know what I mean? Like, they were just looking for an anti-Jushin Liger, and they picked Jericho. He went there. He worked one Tokyo Dome show, and for whatever reason, after he did it, and before they decided we don't like this angle, and so it never happened again. And Jericho actually went back to Japan like a month later as Chris Jericho.
Eddie was like Black Tiger, right?
Yeah, Black Tiger was, but Eddie Guerrero was Black Tiger, which was actually the second Black Tiger because the original Black Tiger was Mark Rollerball Rocco.
Yeah.
Who was?
I just always see like videotapes of Eddie as Black Tiger, and I was like, that cannot be Eddie Guerrero. He looks so much bigger.
Oh, because the costume, because he had the big arm. But Eddie's big now again. Look at Eddie now.
He is. He was
big then. He's big now, and then in between he wasn't quite as big.
Dynamic muscle builder.
Yeah, this is, I want to say to Nova, keep up the awesome site and have good luck in England and Japan on Chris Chetty. I think that Nova and Chetty would be a great tag team in either the WWF or WCW. They work awesome and they can hang with the big boys. And how was it to work with Tajiri? You said you didn't really get a chance to work with Tajiri, did you?
No, I never did. I mean, it was something I was looking forward to. Last summer, actually, they were going to throw together, or me and Chetty were going to wind up doing a series of matches against Crazy and Tajiri. And it never happened because it was that point where Crazy kind of got mixed up with visa problems, and he couldn't come back in for a while. Mm-hmm. So that all got scrapped, and then we moved on to fighting the Impact players. And I was looking forward to it because, you had a Mexican style and Japanese style, and I was looking forward to trying to adapt to both. So it would have been pretty cool.
Why don't you plug your website, too?
All right, www.novaecw.com. I update it quite frequently. I think it's a good way to interact with people. Those are the people that are paying for me to do this. The fans are the ones who pay our salaries. So I like to, answer their questions and give them as much feedback as I can because they deserve to know what's going on.
This is from Scott Harrell, who wants to know what was your cardio routine, and what is your cardio routine right now?
My cardio routine is it's tough, man. I mean, I wake up every morning at 6. I don't eat anything, all night. Oh, sometimes I make a shake and I put it next to my bed, and I'll have that. Like, I'll set my alarm to get up about 2:33, and I have that.
You are dedicated. When you start waking up in the middle of the night to get that little bit of protein in while you're sleeping.
You got to remember.
I do that too.
You go to.
You do that too, Brian?
Yeah.
I've never done that in my life.
And the funny thing is, after a while, you always wake up at the same time.
Yeah, I do. I don't have to set the alarm now. I just get up on instinct. Because, your body is pretty much catabolic for those 8 hours while you're sleeping. So, you're really getting extremes at that point. But I wake up, I go to the gym. I do cardio 5 days a week for 1 hour at a time. And some days I run with almost an Olympic-level sprinter on the treadmill. And other days it's a distance runner. And they push me working harder, and I try to keep my heart rate in a certain zone. And I do it for about an hour at a clip, and then I come home and have my first, about a 50, 30, 20 spread of protein, carbohydrate, fats for my first breakfast. And throughout the rest of the day, I just pretty much calibrate everything, and it's a scientific process, I guess, but it works.
Do you eat like 7 times a day?
I eat, about 6, 7 times a day. Between every 2.5 hours, I try to get between 250 to 300 grams of protein a day. I try to hover at about 150 to 200 carbs a day, depending on what my activities for the rest of the day are going to be. I eat pretty much everything lean, nothing fried, nothing in oil. I just cut out a lot of the crap. I mean, I don't want to damper anybody's spirits, but the American diet's pretty shitty. And that's what's wrong with me for years. It is.
It does.
And it's just, you could literally say to yourself, I'm only eating one bad thing a day. It's not a big deal. But that's 7 bad things a week, And it takes 3,500 calories to burn off 1 pound. So if you're eating 7 bad things a week, that's bang right there. You're done. So it's a system of checks and balances. And, it's a lot of work, but it can be done.
Let's just bring that up about the American diet. There is a wrestler who would wrestle regularly. In fact, I was going to mention him, it was Doug Furness, who wrestled in, Japan for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
And he used to tell me that he thinks that, like, the labeling, because, he was into bodybuilding and, obviously world-class power.
I like Doug. Very, very class act, yeah.
Yeah. He told me that, like, he thinks that, like, the labels that we get on our food are misleading and not accurate. And the reason he would say this, I
believe misleading. I don't know about not accurate.
No, he said
because like the serving size sometimes is so screwed up. You'll read like fat-free for like a brownie, but then it'll say like serving size is 1/15 of the brownie.
Oh, but well, the thing is, and I noticed this a few times that I went to Japan, and what it would be is and I know with he would mention this is that he would eat really, really good, theoretically really, really good all the time in the United States, okay? But then he would go to Japan, and he would eat there, and he would get way more cut. You know, and I know every time I went to Japan, I never watched what I ate, and I always came back, and I was always more cut than when I left.
Yeah, you know what it is? The American food is just, I'm not saying it. I don't know. I'm not in where they make this stuff, but I think the American food is a lot more processed. It's not as refined, and it's got a lot more. I mean, even your simple. I mean, you could be eating really good over here, a la whole wheat breads, fat-free this, fat-free that, and there's still a lot of hidden stuff in there. I mean, you could be eating whole wheat bread, and it could still be made with refined wheat flour, which is literally almost the same as using regular flour. If stuff is fat-free, there's a ton of usually almost 99% of the time, there's a ton of hidden sugars, glycerols, sorbitols, all hidden in there, and you just don't see those things. People think it's fat-free, they can eat as many as they want. No way, because the extra carbs, they'll creep right on you, and it just spikes your insulin level, and your body fat shoots right up. So there's a lot of hidden dangers, you know, and not danger, I don't want to scare you, but there's a lot of hidden things that people don't take into account. And the labels are a little misleading because you think, okay, a little small can of this or 4 or 5 ounces of this, but a lot of people really don't know what 4 or 5 ounces looks like, and they don't know what half a serving of this or half a serving of that. So even they're eating good, you can actually get heavier by eating good food. You just have to know how much to eat and when to eat it and what to eat.
Now, how difficult is this? Now, when you're home, it's not that difficult if you're dedicated to eat very good when you're home. But when you're on the road, unless you're packing your food and bringing it, you know, and if you're, you know, that makes it a whole lot, you know, like eating on an airplane, you've just screwed everything up. You know what I mean?
No, because on the airplane, I adjust ahead of time. I put in my bag, I bring portable oatmeal with me to have on the plane. I have a shake on the plane. In restaurants, I'm probably one of the most annoying people to go to a restaurant with now because it takes me 10 minutes to make my order. You can order egg whites instead of eggs. You can order lean breast, you know, lean meat. I bring with me, too, my own artificial sweetener brown sugar, my own bottle of calorie-free, fat-free syrup. I bring all these things with me to the restaurant. So, yeah.
But I mean, I shouldn't laugh about it because, no, that's really dedicated, and that's the difference between having a good physique and a great physique.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, Chris Chetty thinks I'm out of my mind, but, you know, that's what I had to do. If I was born thermogenically with a great metabolism, a la like the Flash or somebody, then I wouldn't have to do these things. But I honestly don't even miss the way I used to eat because it doesn't even appease to me. But you can even cut out, like, you know, you don't get butter on toast, get whole wheat toast instead of regular toast. You can get, you know, there's diet jelly, sugar-free jelly. I mean, you make these little substitutions, drink Diet Coke instead of Coke, then switch to, like, Crystal Light altogether, and it makes a huge difference.
Let's go back to the calls. We're going to Jim. Jim, what's going on?
Hey, what's up? This is Jimmy Bathtub.
How you doing?
All right, no,
Bathtub?
Yes.
Okay.
I know your sister, Karen Sink.
Oh. Okay, let's go to Scott. Scott, what's going on? No, Scott. Darren.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Darren, how are you?
Who's this?
Pretty good.
This is the real Darren.
Had a quick question. You know, I was watching Bret Hart's Wrestling with Shadows, and it got me to think...
No, go ahead. Go ahead, I'm just teasing.
No, it's not, like, about if it's real or not, but I just wanted to ask...
No, that movie's awesome, but anyway.
It is. But given that, you know, it's made by him, so taking it with a grain of salt, how much...
It wasn't made by him. It was made by Paul J.
Well, I mean, it was about him, though. I mean...
It was about him. Oh, yeah. That's true.
But how much is it where he... You know, when he's talking about, like, you know, everybody needs a hero kind of thing, I mean, does he really believe that, or is that just more, like, for the movie purpose? What would your
I think he really believes that.
I think he believed that to an extent, and a lot of it was, you know, Paul J., you gotta remember, and I talked to Paul J. a lot when he was in the process of making this movie. Paul J. had an idea for a movie, okay? And so he constructed a story, and the story is basically true, but around that idea, and that was the big, so, you know, I wrote about basically the exact, you know, same incident, and I wrote about it pretty differently, but the facts are all basically the same. It's because, you know, my idea was not, you know, somebody, you know, is a hero for his country. I was just writing about a very strange thing that happened in pro wrestling, a very interesting story. It was real, you know, from start to finish, a super interesting story. But, you know, I think he believes that, but again, this was a filmmaker, you know, in Canada, about, you know, trying to make a movie about a guy who was pretty much a Canadian hero, so that aspect of it was going to be emphasized a lot more than if you were a wrestling fan looking at it in a different way and forgetting all that stuff. Because to me, all of that stuff meant nothing to me.
Right. Another comment is that I really appreciated that Jerry Lawler interview, and people like that, and Ted DiBiase, people who, have been either burned or whatever reason, if in the wrestling business, or just dislike it for what it's become. I think
DiBiase never really, I would say, was burned. DiBiase just has, he's got his.
Well, he just
his
grew
view.
a dislike for it, right?
What?
He just grew a dislike for it, right?
No, I think Ted DiBiase loves professional wrestling. That's why he still does this show and things like that. I think that there's, there are aspects of wrestling that he doesn't like, and there's aspects of wrestling we all don't like. I think you got a lot of people
he was involved for a long time. Even during the worst period, he was doing some stuff with WCW.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, but a lot of people will hear someone come on the show and it's either black or white. It's like they say anything bad about wrestling. It's like, oh, they're bitter, they're complaining. It's like sometimes the complaints are very valid, and some guys come on and their complaints are not valid. And you've got to look at that. But Ted DiBiase, he'll say more, or law, Ted DiBiase. He'll say a lot of good about the business and a lot of bad about this, and it's just his opinion of being involved in this business, basically since childhood, because his father and his mother did it as well, and he's very, very knowledgeable about the wrestling industry, and there's, he nearly lost his marriage because of it. There's if you fall to the temptations, you can really get screwed up. You got to be a strong-willed person, or wrestling can be a negative towards you, but, if you're wrestling, everyone in wrestling doesn't end up a horror story, nor does everyone in wrestling end up a success, and it's kind of up to you to not let it, ruin you, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's not all good and it's not all bad.
Right. One quick thing before I go. Brian, totally love your comments, but the thing that really cracks me up every time I hear it is when either it be someone who's calling in or either Dave suggesting it about a certain match, and then you just know it's going to be horrible, and all you do is that, that just cracks me up, man.
I can't help it.
Anyway, you guys have a good day.
Okay, this is an email here for Nova. It says, let's see. What did you think of your match against Van Dam at Gateway over the weekend, and what do you think about Van Dam not getting into WWF and his future chances in wrestling, given the landscape of wrestling right now?
I was intimidated before I wrestled Rob on Friday. Rob is the measuring stick for a lot of people in their mind of, today's prototypical athlete, I guess, in wrestling. I had always heard his story, because I never wrestled him in ECW. I've always been friends with Rob, so we went in the ring and we went. And afterwards, we went for about 15 minutes, and afterwards him and Fonzie both came up to me and said they liked what we did. So that was a good compliment. I believe I'm wrestling him again next week, 2 days in a row on the 13th and 14th in Virginia and Maryland. So, and Rob is Rob. I don't know what he knows he's going to do in the future, his landscape, but if he's depressed about anything, he didn't show it. Rob's got a lot of things going on. He told me about a bunch of different things he had going on in Hollywood, this and that. I know he wants to open up a wrestling school. So, Rob will do what Rob wants to do. I always liked Rob. I wish him the best of luck. I think he's an awesome athlete. And, I hope he winds up somewhere because, I think he's good. I think he's good for the business.
Well, he will wind up somewhere.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, because he's a talent. He's a real talent.
Did you take the Van Terminator?
Yeah, I thought Shane McMahon didn't. I couldn't believe it. I literally.
No, did you take it during the match?
No, he didn't do it because sometimes in different rings and stuff like that, especially on an independent show, you're not going to do some of the things you would do somewhere else. Because it goes back to the theory, you're not going to use somebody else's equipment and try, because what if you spring on, something could slip, something could break, the ring's kind of hard or that kind of stuff. So, he hit me with the one where I lay on the top rope and the chair goes on my face, and ironically enough, I don't push it away, but I hold it against my face so I get kicked in it, and then I land up in the middle of the ring and I get the 5-star frog splash a la the Jimmy Snuka Death Leap. So that was it for me. But it was good. I had a good time wrestling him, and we went. So it was cool.
I got to read this stuff that I just got from the national network, TNN. In its quest for pop culture programming, this has nothing to do with wrestling, but I still got to read it. TNN is going to add 3 series to its 2001 schedule. TNN's Pop Across America, which is a traveling talk show featuring all things pop. I don't know what that means. TNN's Robot Wars, where homemade American robots battle Britain's most evil robots. Names like...
As opposed to their most competitive robots?
Yeah, I don't know. So, It's basically pro wrestling with robots, which actually I think they had that on a pay-per-view once, which
I think it's a better
bought.
time slot than WCW. I'm going to be pissed.
It's going to. Let me tell you. Well, we'll give you the time slot just a second. And then finally, Ultimate Revenge, a series that helps real people create the ultimate revenge against someone near and dear. It's like smashing a banana in their head when they have a perm. Let's see.
That person wasn't near and dear, though.
Actually, they were. But that's
Why would you want to get revenge on somebody who's near and dear anyway?
I think it's like they're not near and dear anymore. Formerly near and dear is how it should be written. Okay, let's see. The Robot Wars, the most powerful heavyweight. So no junior heavyweight robots here. U.S. robots made by amateur U.S. roboters will battle the gladiatorial-style Britain most popular robot warriors, including Sergeant Bash, Refbot, and Matilda. Matilda's a damn dog. Anyway, in a psychological as well as technological war, 6 60-minute episodes of Robot Wars will be produced in London with a U.S. host and U.S. contestants.
6 minutes?
60 minutes. It's a 1-hour show.
Oh, my God.
Let me see. Robot Wars was created for BBC television. It's now in its 4th season. And on BBC Two, it gets a 23 share of the audience. I want, you know what happens? We got a lot of listeners in England. So please tell us if this is true, because there's something that's known in television, and that is that you quote something's so popular in Japan or England, and half the time the people in Japan and England never even heard of it. But anyway, it says
speaking of dogs, why was your dog so angry yesterday?
My dog, someone was chopping a tree down. That's all.
I thought the whole Lions Den came over.
In 4 years, Robot Wars has become a worldwide phenomenon, seen in 15 countries, including Sweden, Italy, and Germany. Okay, this doesn't give a time slot for any of those shows. They are getting Baywatch. What else do they got? That's pretty much all that we got here from those folks at TNN. Let me see what we got here. This is from Pat, who goes, I'm wondering about the weight and heights in wrestling. I'm all mixed up. On WF.com, they say Chris Benoit's 5'10", 220, which actually is probably not much of an exaggeration at all. He's probably about 5'9", but he's probably about 220. Kurt Angle is 6'2", 220, which he's actually, I would guarantee he weighs more than 220, and he's a lot less than 6'2". And Matt Hardy says he's 225, which he very well may be.
They're really tall, the Hardys.
What?
The Hardys are tall.
The Hardys are, when I met them, they're a lot bigger than I thought they were.
Yeah.
Because, that's the thing. Everyone in the WF is bigger than you think. No, but didn't you think that everyone in the WF is bigger than you think they are because they're also damn big?
Yeah, some of those dudes, I don't know how Kane is one of the biggest, one of the coolest guys I ever met, but he's big.
You have to say that.
Yeah, he is. Guy's a nutritional genius, too. He knows his shit.
Yeah, I know you do. I'm just teasing.
Big Show was big. They were all big dudes, but,
Does he know his nutritional stuff?
What was that?
Does he know his nutritional stuff, too?
Oh, Kane? Yeah, he's a genius.
Big Show.
Oh, Big Show? I don't know. You know what? If he says he does, he does. I'm not going to argue. If he told me that the Mars was the center of the universe, I'd say, you know what? You're right, Copernicus. I thought it was. Whatever he says. They don't call him the Big Show for nothing. Let's put it that way.
But no, as far as wrestling heights and weights are just wrestling heights and weights. They're kind of
everybody looks
varied
bigger on TV anyway, so.
Yeah. How tall and how much these? Benoit's probably about 5'9". Kurt Angle I think is probably about 5'9" or 5'10". But I think Matt Hardy probably weighs 225.
Maybe a little bit less.
Maybe a little less?
Yeah, maybe more when we're deceiving, a little bit thicker, a little stockier, but they're both in really good shape, so,
Let's see. Do you think if XFL had storylines, it would have been a more successful show? They were, the problem is they were doing football, and they tried to do storylines and was kind of rejected. They tried with Ventura and Rusty Tillman. It was an absolute disaster, so they probably wouldn't have been more successful with storylines, even though going into the season I thought that the thing that was going to make it was their storylines. It was just, you know what? They were just audiences that can't. Football has such a certain type of audience, and wrestling has such a certain type of audience, and they don't mix. And I think that's just, it just, the idea of mixing them sounded great until you actually try to do it, and it just didn't work. Let's see. What do we have here? This is, some more stuff for Nova, I know that. Good grief. This is like a really bad letter. I don't even want to read it. Let me see. What do we got here? Let's see. Okay. even though Gillberg had to be taken out of the Battle Royal, there was still a lot that WWF could have done to make it more exciting. For example, now that Vince owns the contracts for WCW, he could have brought in Bryan Adams and Barry Darsow as Demolition. Oh, okay. They didn't buy Bryan Adams' contract. WCW fell in its ratings and fan base because of poor booking. Everyone knows that by now. And the fact they felt they could instantly gain in ratings by copying Vince McMahon's angles, McMahon's talent, McMahon's entrance themes, McMahon's attitude, and even McMahon's use of the giant screen. Really, WCW rose by copying Paul Heyman, and then they just screwed up. You know, I mean, everyone copies everyone in wrestling. That's the reality. I mean, WWF copied a lot of stuff from WCW and ECW to turn it around, and there's no crime in doing that. WCW, Bischoff, obviously, he copied Japan. We all know that. The fact that WCW's stars had no original concepts of their own leads me to say that they do not deserve to be called stars. Why do you think WCW was being booed at WrestleMania and Raw? Yeah, because WCW stunk for so long. We all know XFL's been dropping in ratings and scoring record lows, and because of that, you have to sit back and wonder how badly is NBC going to rub it in Vince McMahon's face when the NFL season starts, how pissed they are, and how pissed is Vince going to be. They're not going to rub it in Vince's face, NBC.
They're going to ignore it.
They're rubbing it in their own face. Okay. Let me see what we got here. Am I correct? This is for you, Nova. Am I correct in thinking that the insignia on your outfit is based on the television show The Greatest American Hero?
Absolutely. And I put it on there for that reason only. Over the years, a very select few people have actually come up to me and said, dude, that's from The Greatest American Hero. And I put it there just for a laugh, just for that. I'm a huge comic book fan. That's where I got all my ideas for my outfits, whether it be Green Lantern or Venom, Spider-Man. And I saw that logo. I liked the show, and I put it on there. And every once in a while, somebody would comment on it. So they're right.
Hey, wait a minute. I got a question because I'm a huge comic book fan.
Okay.
Is the reason why you took the name Nova after the Marvel Comics character Nova?
No, actually, I had that name. Mike Sharp came up with it, helped me come up with it. And then, of course, I started, I knew the comic books and stuff like that. I never put two and two together until I started reading New Warriors, and Nova was part of that. Oh. And Mike Sharp was the one who put Super in front of it all those years. So
cool.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Let's go to Vince in New York. Vince, what's going on?
What's going on?
Not too much.
Hey.
I got a comment about the NWO. I was listening earlier, and I don't want to see it come back personally because I think it ran its course. But the only thing that would work, and it's already too late for it, would have been when Vince first announced on TV that he had bought WCW, would have been to bring in the original two, Nash and Hall, which again I don't want to see, but to have them.
And he doesn't either.
It would have been to say that it was their plan all along. It worked. WWF took over WCW. And that's the only thing that I think would have worked for the fans. I don't think using the NWO name, music, anything would work now.
No, it's just nobody wants to go back in time. It would have been a good ending to that story. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah. I was reading on WWF.com. They put up a story on the Gimmick Battle Royal, and they had comments from Hector Guerrero, so it leads me to believe that he probably was.
Well, I guess he was the guy.
Yeah. But other than that, that's all I got.
Okay. I figured it was Hector Guerrero. Let's go to Kobe. Kobe, what's up?
Hello.
Hey.
Hello, Dave. Brian, what's up?
Yes. We're here.
Nova, how you doing?
How you doing,
You were a hell of an entertaining wrestler. Loved you in ECW. One of my favorite things about it.
Thank you.
You were just talking about this a couple minutes ago. I'm a big comic book fan, too. This is what I wanted to ask you about. I loved your outfits, and I just wanted to ask, did you do all that legitimately? Did you...
in what sense?
They're involved?
Yeah, actually.
As far as the design?
I would draw it, and then my first couple ones, the Greatest American Hero one, my original blue and white one, the ones that have BWO, Exotic Adrian Street made those for me. And then some of the other ones, like my Venom one, my Green Lantern one, actually, oddly enough, Easy Money made those for me.
Cool.
He's a fantastic sewer, and he made those ones for me. And everybody used to ask me if I had the copyright to use them, and it was no big deal because I was pretty good friends with a lot of the writers from Marvel Comics, and they were like, okay, yeah, do it, just putting us over. So they were cool with it.
All right. Dave, I got another question.
Sure.
If you can cover this in the time you have left. It's something I've always wondered about since we saw him at WrestleMania. What exactly was the deal with Jimmy Snuka in the 80s that got him in so much trouble, just as much as you could actually indulge on the air?
Well, he just... he just had problems as far as, like, he had drug problems and things like that, and that, he no-showed a lot. He was no-showing a lot. And they just, had to get rid of him at one point. He was a phenomenal attraction, so it took a lot to get rid of him. But, I remember watching Jimmy Snuka on some house shows. Some nights he was fine and phenomenal, and then some nights, literally he would do a 2-minute match because he really shouldn't have been out there. And it's, that was the 80s.
That's cool. Well, I guess not. Anyway, all right. I appreciate you taking my call.
Okay. Let's go to Ed in New Jersey. Ed, what's going on?
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Doing good.
Dave, I just wanted to ask you. I live in New Jersey, and I'm planning on attending the King of the Ring this year. And I just wanted to know, who do you think the WWF is going to make King of the Ring this year?
Oh, boy, I don't know who they're going to put in it.
Benoit.
Test?
That's my early prediction. Chris Benoit.
I think Benoit and Kurt Angle will probably be wrestling in a match outside of King of the Ring, like a submission match on that show or something. Yeah. Or, maybe like an ankle lock versus crossface. So I don't think either of them will be in the tournament.
I kind of think that'll be done before June, though.
You may be right. Let's see. Usually they use it as an elevation thing, so Test is an interesting one in there, because obviously they're high on him. Who else would they be?
What about Eddie?
Eddie, I don't see it. Jericho, maybe. Just because maybe they feel like they've taken so much from him that they need to give him a big one.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. I don't know. No one else stands out. Like last year, it was pretty obvious almost. Pretty much everyone knew Angle was going to win ahead of time.
Funny you sing that Kurt Angle video. They had footage of him and Rikishi in the finals. And afterwards, they're having all these interviews with the guys who were in the tournament. And Rikishi goes, "Okay, I'm going to shoot with you, brother. Kurt Angle was in better shape." That is a revelation. Kurt Angle's in better shape than Rikishi on that night. Another night, he might have had it, but not King of the Ring.
Oh, my God. Anything else, Ed?
I was looking at your archive show section, and I was seeing you had interviews with Matt Hardy and Kurt Angle a while back. And I was just wondering, how come you haven't had any WWF stars?
They will not let us.
Before the ban.
We had this 2-week period where it seemed like we had a WWF guy every day, and we had these awesome shows. Just about every single one of them was an awesome show. Kurt Angle was great. Regal was phenomenal. Matt Hardy was tremendous for our demographics, and he was a good guest too. Edge and Christian were great. So we had just great shows one after the other, and then they came down and told the guys that they could no longer do it without being cleared by the office. And so...
And shockingly, no one's been cleared by the office at that time.
No one's been cleared ever since.
Although Matt Hardy did sneak in here one day because we had Shannon Moore on, and they just happened to be working out at the gym together.
And he just happened to hand him the phone. And, yeah, that's right.
He snuck in the back door.
Yeah.
All right, that's all. Thanks.
So that's the deal.
Hey, Nova, is there anyone working out with you today?
What was that? Wait, oh my God, who's it? Shawn Michaels in my house right now. I can't believe this. He's here.
Hey, we were trying to get him on.
Yeah, no, I work out by myself. Nobody.
Let's go to Scott. Scott, what's going on?
Hey guys, sorry about before. I got this.
We can get that distance runner on here.
Yeah. He's still running.
How's it going, guys? Hello.
It's going pretty good.
What's going on?
How about you, Nova?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm glad you were able to get through. This is going to be big.
Yeah. Do you ever work up here in the Northeast ever? I'm in Connecticut. New York,
sometimes. I'm going to be in Connecticut tomorrow night in Danbury.
That's tomorrow night.
Yeah. So
show talk about. Yeah. Because I haven't. I know I saw like Chetty and Doring were on a show a couple weeks ago, but I know they're in the area, and
I try to do as much Northeast as I can, but I want to go to a lot of places that I normally I started off in the Northeast, so I want to go to a lot of other different places too. But I guess I'll be there sooner or later. So
yeah, do you by any chance know a worker named Joey LaGuardia?
Joey LaGuardia.
Yeah, goes by the name something like Flexer or Flexin Joey LaGuardia or something like that.
No, should I?
I don't know, because I was at a show a couple weeks ago, and he was there, and I was asking him. I said, "You look familiar," and he said, "Maybe you see me working with Nova," and I was like, "Well, no idea."
I know. But you know what? I'll write down. Yeah.
He made a liar in wrestling. That's a story.
Yeah, I've never heard that before, but No, I mean, his name will go on the list. I'm going to look for Joey LaGuardia as soon as I get off the phone. Thank you, Scott. You've informed me of a...
Yeah, because you're the guy to ask.
Thank you.
All right, and so I'll let you guys go get some more calls, all right? See you guys later.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, thanks very much. Actually, we're like totally out of time. No, I want to thank you. This was a really fun show.
Cool.
We got to do this. We got to definitely do this one again. Yeah, it was. It was one of the best ones. And good information as far as diet. We could probably get into like more of like meal by meal.
Yeah.
And then I'm being serious because you've done an amazing transformation, and to look like that without good genetics is pretty impressive.
Yeah, thank you. It's been tough, you know. I take a lot of pride being all natural. I just use a lot of supplements, and I just diet and work hard, and it's tough, but it's worth it.
Okay, cool. And I want to remind everyone we're going to have Donovan Morgan of All Pro Wrestling tomorrow, who actually he's going to be working the same show with you at UPW on the 25th. And he'll be on tomorrow. And Tuesday we're going to have Ken Shamrock, and we'll see you tomorrow at 5.